Today, we're diving into a single, really powerful idea that didn't just influence a religion, but actually shaped an entire civilization. We're talking about the indivisible bond between faith and action in Islamic thought. This one sentence right here is basically the key to everything we're talking about. The argument is that for centuries, the strength of Muslim civilization was totally rooted in this idea that what you believe and what you do are inseparable. But the moment that bond fractured, well, that's when a decline began. So that's the big question, isn't it? How could one concept be so powerful that it could literally build up an empire and then, once broken, contribute to its decline? We're going to trace this idea all the way from its origins through its biggest crisis and see why this ancient debate is, believe it or not, more relevant today than ever. Okay, so let's start at the very beginning, with the original blueprint that made this connection between faith and action so incredibly powerful. If you look at the foundational texts, faith and action are presented as two sides of the exact same coin. They aren't, separate items on some kind of spiritual checklist. They're fused together. In this original view, you simply can't have one without the other. This quote really frames the whole philosophy. It wasn't about just having abstract beliefs floating around in your head. No, this was a moral framework that was grounded first and foremost in action. At the end of the day, your character, your identity, it's all defined by what you do in the world. And listen, this wasn't just some high-minded theory. The first generation of Muslims actually lived it. They combined their belief with this profound sense of practical responsibility for the world around them. For them, following the law wasn't about blind compliance. It was about actively doing good. It basically erased the line between your private faith and your public impact. And the results? They were absolutely staggering. This philosophy of faith in action literally propelled a community from being shepherds on the margins of society to becoming leaders on the world stage. They gained this incredible moral credibility, not just from what they said, but from what they actually built and how they acted. But, as you can probably guess, this powerful unity didn't last forever. A fracture started to appear, and the community began to struggle under new pressures, coming from both the inside and the outside. Internally, you had these two competing ideas that started pulling the community apart. On one extreme, you had Harijism, this really rigid, zero-tolerance idealism that was so extreme it actually threatened to break society. And then on the total opposite end, you had Murjism, which argued that faith alone was enough. This basically created a kind of get-out-of-jail-free card, hollowing out the need for righteous action. Now, at the same time, all these external ideas started to seep in. Greek philosophy, especially its heavy emphasis on abstract logic, began to reshape the entire intellectual landscape. People started interpreting the Quran through these new, foreign lenses, and that slowly shifted the focus away from practical, real-world action. And this led to a massive shift in priorities. Suddenly, the ultimate goal of life was no longer seen as doing good deeds, but as attaining abstract knowledge. That dynamic, world-changing blueprint of faith and action was being swapped out for a much more passive intellectual ideal. But, the story doesn't just end there with a broken idea. Because, right in the middle of this intellectual crisis, a major figure emerges who tries to correct the course and bring back that original balance. And that figure was the scholar Ibn Taimiyya. This guy, he saw the danger in all these shifts and launched a massive intellectual project to fix it. He worked to rebalance those theological extremes we just talked about, and he pushed back hard against the dominance of Greek logic, arguing for a return to the original sources. This right here was his core argument, and it was a radical challenge to the new intellectual elite. He basically said, look, the purpose of life isn't to sit around and contemplate God in the abstract. It's to get out there and actively implement God's will in the world, to be an agent of positive change. So his vision was super clear and totally action-oriented. He saw human beings as moral agents, first and foremost. We are here to bear responsibility and to actively participate in building a just and ethical society for everyone. It was a direct call to action to restore that essential link between what you believe and what you do. Okay, so you might be thinking, a debate from the 13th century, why should I care? Well, here's why it matters right now. Because as we're about to see, this intellectual struggle, it never really ended. It has been echoing through the centuries, and it's brought us to a critical crossroads today. You can actually trace this exact line of thought all the way through history.
Centuries after Ibn Taimiyya, his ideas were picked up and validated by figures like the Indian Sufi scholar Sheikh Ahmad Sirhindi. And then, in our modern era, the influential thinker Fazlur Rahman grabbed that same thread and issued a pretty stark warning for our time.
Rahman's warning was this: if the Muslim world failed to finally resolve this fundamental tension between faith and action, this very fracture we've been talking about, it would inevitably be torn between two incredibly dangerous extremes.
And here they are. Sound familiar? On one side, you get a kind of reactive religious extremism which overemphasizes action without a sound ethical and faith-based foundation. And on the other side, you get an aggressive secularism that wants to remove faith from public life entirely. Rahman saw both of these as the direct, predictable consequences of failing to reunite belief with responsible, ethical action. And this brings us to our final, and honestly pretty provocative question. If some of the ancient schools of thought are long gone, why does it seem like the traditions that favor abstract belief over practical, ethical action still hold so much influence in the modern world? This question gets right to the heart of the struggle for balance that we've been exploring today.